He saved my life, you know. 30 years ago, I was knifed in a bazaar in Calcutta. He carried me to the hospital on his back.
Who stabbed you?
He did.
You know what they do in that particular department, anyway. Are you still a cop? No! No! Swear on your mother's grave you're still not a cop?
Can I not walk up here quick?
Oh, look, David, a boot.
A boot.
Don't hit George, David.
I wasn't gonna hit George.
Daffodils.
They're your favorite flower.
How did you get so many?
I called everywhere in 5 states. I told them it was the only way to get my wife to marry me.
You don't even know me.
I have the rest of my life to find out.
Isn't that sweet?
Shiny, happy people.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing blowing up or anything like that?
No.
That was what was wrong with that movie. Things didn't blow up.
Severe lack of decapitation in Big Fish is what you're saying?
You know.
Yeah, well, what you might say is...
I'm Tom.
And I would say, I'm Mark.
And then we both say...
And we're the Cinemaniacs.
That wasn't bad.
We
didn't plan that, really.
We've honed our technique after being away for a week.
the week off has really put us on our mark.
Yeah.
Or our Tom, as the case may be.
Oh, you know, I kind of got a week back. How long have you had that?
How long have you had that?
Oh, about a week back. Anyway,
okay.
So we have a lot to get caught up with. It's a little something for the Stooge fans out there.
Maybe we should shut up.
Maybe I should shut up personally.
No, I don't know.
Go ahead.
Okay, sure. The Coen brothers are back with their gang of crazy idiots and everything like that. And strangely enough, they're doing a movie about movies. You into things like that? They certainly are. Well, George Clooney plays a superstar who gets kidnapped. And if you want to try to find out where he is, you ought to maybe hop a cab or grab the nearest, if you want to call the nearest chariot to get you there. And if you wanted to get that nearest chariot, you might just want to hail Caesar.
You have earned. Now is time for intermission. Treat yourself to some nutrition.
What a weird trailer.
And the movie was complicated too.
It's quirky.
Sort of. Yeah,
I think quirky.
Well, that's the Coen brothers, and I think quirky does describe it.
So the trailer that I saw in our local Keene cinemas, which is where I choose to see feature films, was really aggressively goofy. And I remember watching it thinking, this is trying really hard, and it's not amusing me. So I didn't expect
the trailer,
much.
You mean?
The trailer that I saw, which was not this one. It was a much more straightforward, wacky comedy trailer. So I went in expecting a Coen Brothers quirk fest and it to be silly. I didn't find it funny. That's my problem with this movie. I think I was occasionally amused. Like I would sit there and go, but I never laughed out loud during this. And it tries hard. It's weird. The Coen Brothers like to F with audiences and F with form and things like that. And I almost feel like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make a movie that looks like a comedy. We're going to shoot it like a comedy. We're going to edit it like a comedy. They're going to perform it like a comedy, but we're not going to make it funny just to F with the audience. Because that's what I felt like. There's all this histrionics and bug-eyedness, and I'm just thinking, this is not funny. A whole lot of plot going on in this movie.
Right.
And a lot of it never goes anywhere. There's all this stuff, and a lot of it takes a long time to figure out what's going on. Like, George Clooney is this big star who is kidnapped by this shady group of people, and to me, they keep cutting back and forth to his story, and it's a long time before they really come out and say what's going on.
Right.
By which point I just had lost interest. I'm like, oh, we're back with these people again. It's a movie about movies, which I believe the general public does not care about. I think the general public does not want to listen to a song about trying to write a song, and they don't want to read a book about trying to write a book, and they don't want to watch a movie about trying to... People like us like this stuff, and even then, I should be like kind of the ideal audience for this movie, and I didn't even care that much. To me, the greatest strength of this was the recreation of late period old Hollywood. Hollywood in the early to mid 50s.
Right.
The look was great, the costumes were great, the sets. They do recreations of different genres of films. So you see a little bit of a Western that's kind of funny and goofy. You see the big Aqua Ballet, Ethel Merman kind of number, which is cool. You see a really good dance sequence with Channing Tatum that's sort of a Gene Kelly kind of thing.
Absolutely.
That's for the most part shot correctly, and it makes you impressed back when they would just calm the hell down with camera and editing to let us be impressed by something. And it's an all-star cast and some Coen regulars and a lot of good bit players and all that. But ultimately, I felt like it was too long, and so much of it just didn't go anywhere. And you keep cutting back to the sort of not the framing story, but the central character is this studio fixer. These people that really existed in the studio system who were out there to quell misdeeds, let's say, that some of the Hollywood actors might have done and cover things up and pay people off and all that. And he's played by Josh Brolin, who's always great. But his story, it would have been more interesting if it was a serious movie about that guy, to me, than this comedy, because his story is kind of serious and there's all this wacky stuff going on around it. And I don't know, to me it was just a mess that was pretty looking. I don't know, as a movie guy, what did you think of it?
I enjoyed it, and again, I like the Coens usually. I think they've been real hit or miss lately. They've done a couple of what I consider to be truly great films and some of the best comedies ever. But you're right that I think this one tries too hard. I enjoyed, but this is me personally, because I've been on movie sets and TV sets. I enjoyed that and a lot of the little kitschy in-jokes that I think only people like us...
It seems like an L.A. movie.
Yeah, very much so. Performances I thought were terrific. Brolin is great. Clooney's not in it that much. But I thought it was disjointed as well. We follow what is Brolin's character, and Brolin as the fixer is the logical reason for us to meet these characters who are in the Western, as you said, or the dance number, or the musical, and that kind of thing. But I didn't see really where it was going. It sort of came to a conclusion at the end, but I had to, and maybe this is good to force the audience to really think about why I saw this, but I'm not sure why I saw it. I have understandings as to, I think this is why I saw that, but it didn't really come to grips, and I think film, like any art, should be pretty forthright and say, this is what we think, and the audience's job is to agree or disagree with it, not to have to struggle to try to figure out why I just spent 2 hours to watch that.
A lot of times people who like a film that is a little bit complex or doesn't, a film that is rewarded via multiple viewings will say, well, you have to see it again, or you really have to see it 3 times to get it. And I'm like, buddy, I don't have time to watch it 3 times. There are earnest movies I haven't watched yet. I'm not going to watch this thing more than once.
Exactly.
I don't need it to be stupid and obvious, but at the same time, it's not fun to be just like have a furrowed brow the whole time and go, what was that guy? What did he say?
Yeah.
What's going on?
So I think you put it best in that I didn't think this was funny. I don't know that I laughed out loud once. I was certainly smiling and enjoyed it. I think this could be maybe even more fun on video, but if you like the Coen brothers, if you're fond of their kind of much more quirky bits, I think it's good enough, but I certainly don't think it's for the mainstream audience.
I will say that I don't know if they were mainstream or Hollywood insiders living in Keene or what. I went opening night, and the people who saw it, this is how we have to look at, how I look at things, the people who paid their own hard-earned money and chose to see this movie, there was a good amount of laughter and there was applause at the end of the film. So it's not like everybody thought this was terrible.
Okay, well, good.
So speaking of films that people with hard-earned money are paying to see, or at least a few other people did when I was there yesterday, what do you got when you got high-collared and puffy and frilly shirts and people with repressions and obsessions and secessions and occasional contusions in England of times past, with a threat that is not terribly pleasant or necessarily realistic but could be rather gut-munchingly gross and grubby? Well, my good friend and Uncle Charlie, you have yourself Pride and Prejudice and zombies.
Hello there. Give the demonstration of my new invention, the goodies machine.
That's some false advertising, I would say.
How so?
That's a very rock and roll, fast-paced, kick-ass trailer for a movie that I thought was pretty dull overall.
Okay.
We're going to disagree on this, folks, so get your popcorn. It's unusual. So I knew this was a book. I mean, it was a book by Jane Austen, and then somebody took it and infused zombies into it as a joke or whatever, and it was a very popular book, and this is based on that. I just didn't think it worked for me. I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, so it's a fairly serious take on the Pride and Prejudice aspect of it. So it's society people and people trying to get married and dowries and legacies and social status and all that stuff while a zombie outbreak is going on. So, but for me, it's like, as I said in the intro, it's Pride and Prejudice. and zombies. Like the and zombies is like in parentheses. Early on in the film, they're talking about how this world is. All the children, all the young females are trained in either Japan or China for their zombie fighting skills, so that they can help protect the family and what's left of non-zombified culture. And they mentioned, one of the girls mentions that she trained at the Shaolin Temple, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be one of these. I like the Fu, okay? And so when the first, I get choked up about Kung Fu and martial arts because it's so true to my heart and culture. When the first zombie thing happens, I realize, okay, these zombie attacks are action sequences. And that's how you're going to present me an action sequence?
Okay.
I think we have a problem because it's all the shaky, fast cut, bad camera work crap. And then when you bring in the zombie fighting, it's martial arts, which I love, and there's a way to shoot it, which is show me what's going on. And this movie doesn't. And there's a sequence pretty early on where the sisters are they're sparring in the basement, doing their martial arts practice, and they're having like a little lighthearted argument, and they're all clad in black in a dimly lit basement, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be one of those movies. Why do you not want me to see this? So for me, this is kind of a horror movie, kind of, in theory.
Sort of.
Horror, comedy, drama, romance. No musical, unfortunately. If it was a Bollywood movie, there'd be musical numbers in there, by God. And so I'm not interested in the drama. It's boring to me. Occasionally I think, is this supposed to be funny? And it's not. And then when the horror elements come in, they're so brief and barely there and badly shot, I'm just like, when is this going to end? I don't care. It's a good cast. You have Matt Smith, the previous to the one Doctor Who ago, and Charles Dance and Lita Headley from Game of Thrones. So there's recognizable people in this. And it plays pretty straight with the drama aspects of it, and then pretty straight with the horror elements too, for the most part. It kept reminding me of Hammer movies, making me wish I was watching a Hammer movie instead, because you have these very old England, classy people and situations contrasted against gore and horror and gruesomeness, and it makes the scary stuff pop out that much more because it's against this loveliness. Okay. But it didn't work for me. The idea of the zombies, they're weird. There are different zombie rules in this where they're like normal people, sort of. They can like be classy and have a conversation, and it's like not until they eat brains. And it's the zombie brains thing, which bugs me. To me, zombie brains is if I say Elvis and you say thank you very much. A, I want to punch you, and B, I'm disappointed that it's the lowest common denominator cultural reference you have on that subject. Right. To me, the zombie brains thing is like, Return of the Living Dead did that. That's not necessarily a zombie thing. It just seems cheesy. It's a very funny movie. Return of the Living Dead is great. I want to talk about a zombie movie that's fun and funny, and Return of the Living Dead 2 is a lot of fun too. So anyway, I didn't really like Pride and Prejudice and zombies. I wonder if you are well-versed in Jane Austentatiousness, if this is funnier, like if the drama part is funnier because it's Jane Austen and they're throwing... Or if it's offensive because it's making... I don't know. I'm not sure who the target audience for this is. I'm going to guess teenage females who have a literary bent but got a little bit of an edge to them. I don't know. It just wasn't me. I was just really bored and annoyed. And you will have differing words, I assume. Well,
my wife is a huge Jane Austen fan, and she wouldn't go anywhere near this. I just dreaded going to this. I don't like Jane Austen. I don't like period pieces. I'm getting sick of zombies. And so I went into this thinking, oh, what a waste of time this was going to be. And I thought this was terrific. Good. I saw the zombie bit. I hate to say this, but I saw the zombie bit as being social commentary. And I saw some... you talk about how it's back in like Elizabethan England, and where not to be sexist or anything like that, but at the time the woman's job was to be cultured and sophisticated and learn how to entertain and dance properly and learn about art. And they had these women, this family, they had to forego that so that they could train and learn how to kill zombies. And there's these regular references, but they're just subtly thrown out there. They don't shove it at you about how they in particular have suffered, and their lives are sacrificed so that they can make sure that London and the rest of society survives. I thought that was poignant. I thought the love between Elizabeth and Darcy.
You may be the only person to say poignant
in
relation to Pride and Prejudice and zombies.
Are tears welling up in my eyes because Darcy's dead?
Or am I having a stroke?
Right. Yeah. So I was just really surprised at this. I didn't expect to like it at all. And I thought on pretty much all levels except the zombie stuff, strangely enough. I thought there was internal logic of the zombie stuff that didn't work. I thought that was the least appealing. But so I just thought Pride and Prejudice and Zombies just surprised the heck out of me, and I'm going to buy it on Blu-ray when it comes out.
I'm very.
I'm sorry.
I and the filmmakers are very happy for you.
I guess so. I'm like the only one because apparently everybody else has had your opinion of it.
Well, I don't know yet. I'm curious to see what other people think. Movies
Okay.
at CheshireTV.org.
There you go. You got it out this time.
There was a movie called Vampires Suck, which did.
Sure did.
That's what I was expecting out of this. I thought it was
Right.
going to be really wacky and have, Daily Show people in it and Rob Corddry with a wig half cocked and all that. And it wasn't. It was played really straight. And
Right.
the costumes, sets, locations were really, it was well done.
Right.
I almost wondered if you could just cut the zombie stuff out of this movie.
If you could make anything, yeah, exactly.
So speaking of zombies and gore for the whole family,
Not sure about that, but Poe is back. You need Mo Poe, don't you? And he's facing a couple of serious confrontations. He's got to get his action back because it's not the first or the second one, but you got Kung Fu Panda 3.
Brother, I suppose you've come to claim me treasure. Well, we'd like to see the gold first.
it was CH.
Yes,
he
yeah,
was
exactly.
saying.
I was wondering about that.
In the theater, I'm like, wow, that sounds real close to the brown word. I never saw the first Kung Fu Panda because I didn't have to. I believe I saw the second one for the show, but it has faded from memory. So I was
this
coming.
is brand new for you.
I was coming to this pretty fresh. I know there's a panda who's an oaf and a kung fu
Right.
master or something. So love the Fu films. Watching this made me really wish that we lived in a world where I could see, or a country where I could see legitimate martial arts films on the big screen, but we can't. We have to have idiot pandas who, with a heart of gold, it's just clearly he's an idiot character in these movies who somehow prevails. I wasn't really into the story or the humor of this at all. Little kids in the audience really were.
Yeah.
They were into it.
This
There
is
are
for
people
little
who were really,
kids.
and it was a really well attended opening day or opening weekend show that I saw. What I will give this is that it was gorgeous to look at. Oh my God, this looked good. This was beautiful. The landscapes, the iconography, the opening titles, the end titles, where you kind of get more stylized still artwork of the characters. And almost always in the case of the 3D movie, best 3D is the end credits. Why is that? I don't know. So I was carried on the visuals of this. It's an interesting story, and I don't remember how well it ties into the previous films, but basically this evil being who's dead and is on the other side finds a way to come back and wreak havoc. So there's like otherworldly stuff and supernatural stuff and amazing, really, really cool visuals is what I mostly want to say about this. I saw it in 3D. I don't recall now, because this was 2 weeks ago, how much 3D was particularly used in this. I don't think it's really going to matter one way or the other. It's like surround sound. Occasionally you're going to get a little something in 3D, but if you don't see it that way, it doesn't matter. I would say if you are forced to bring a kid to this, it'll be mildly entertaining enough to sit through, and if nothing else, turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream on those visuals, because they're so good. Also, I want to say that some of the voice acting is pretty cool. You get James Hong, who's an Asian character actor who makes everything better when he's in it, and you get Chan in there. And if we can't see Chan on the big screen in this country, and frankly at this point it's probably not a bad thing, at least we get his voice in there, and that makes me happy because I'm a huge Chan fan. So what did you think of Kung Fu Panda 3?
I mean, overall, I don't think I liked it as much as you did. I didn't dislike it. I went in, once again, expecting to dislike this because I haven't been, I guess maybe not dislike it, but they've all been so for kids.
They're for little
and
kids.
you and I, as you already alluded to, looking for something. If you're going to bring this to your kid, is there enough there that the adults can deal with it? I, too, thought that it just looked spectacular. Now, most people, will that be enough there? I don't think there's enough there really for, if you're not looking for great colors and great crisp quality images and things like that. I think this is really aimed more at kids. Liked the first one well enough. I didn't need the sequel or this one. So story-wise, it was okay. I mean, basically, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I think for kids, it's great. Maybe for really little kids, there might be kind of Fantasia-esque, some scary moments for it. But I don't think that's who it's aimed at. I think you're looking at the preteens and certainly lower, and perfectly good for them. I think there's enough there to keep the adults going who happen to sacrifice and bring their kids to it. If you like the Kung Fu Pandas, it's more of what you wanted. And so it just doesn't happen to be my cup of herbal tea or whatever.
Your cup of noodles.
Yeah, exactly.
As it were.
There you go.
I liked how respectful it seemed to be toward Asian culture
Very much so,
and
yeah.
martial arts culture and iconography, and then all of that put a big question mark when they closed the film with kung fu fighting.
Whoever made this loves fu movies, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's what worked on me. I'm like, wow, this is like the various animal styles of fu are represented by animals who do that. I'm like, this is cool. I just wish it was actual living people doing this, or even if this was like human characters telling the story as opposed to just goofy animals. But you know, that's what we have Blu-ray players for, apparently. So, speaking of Blu-ray players, this will work its way into somebody's Blu-ray player in about 6 months, I'm sure. What do you do when you are trapped aboard an oil tanker that has split in half in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean in the middle of the winter? Well, once you change your pants, you call the Coast Guard and you find out if you are going to be among their finest hours.
Get Dr. Pepper, more than refreshing. Get Dr. Pepper, a snack bar.
And because they all died,
yes.
Well, that saved them 2 hours.
Yeah, there we go.
So I was expecting a perfect storm kind of thing with this because the location, the setting, the scenario, it's the accent, it's all kind of the same.
Right.
This for me was less exciting than a perfect storm. The perfect storm. This is my fault. I was expecting a film where it's just one insurmountable, disastery kind of obstacle after another to get to, and there really isn't that. Basically, it's true story. A oil tanker off the coast of Massachusetts split in half and somehow remained afloat long enough for some guys to attempt to rescue.
And in the 50s.
In the 50s.
I think for me that
so
was
technology
what was
is limited.
Exactly.
And what's amazing to me while I'm watching this is, and this is true, that it was one of two ships that split in half in the same area.
Yeah.
And so the Coast Guard was like
at the same time.
Yeah, like
right?
simultaneously.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, everybody's off with that other ship that split in half. So if you 4 guys want to go rescue 50 guys off this huge boat, feel free. So it is, man versus nature, and oh my God, it's these 3 young guys on this tiny boat that keeps going underwater.
Yeah.
And these guys are like on the deck of the boat, fully underwater as they're trying to get out there. So the big struggle is the guys on the tanker ship trying to survive and stay afloat long enough to be rescued, and the guys who are doing the rescuing, are they able to get there and get the guys off before the boat goes over?
Well, because the guys on the 3 guys on the boat trying to rescue them lose their compass,
Yes.
and they have no way of figuring out where the heck they are anyway. So
so it is intense. It just wasn't quite the level of intensity I expected from this. I'm not saying it's not good. Period detail is good. I saw it in 3D, which I don't think really added a heck of a lot to it.
Right.
Again, little subtle accents here and there, but otherwise you're not missing anything. When I saw it, it was a fairly dim movie because it's all at night.
Yes.
So this is a case where the 3D sometimes does take a little of the visual edge off it. I would say see it 2D, but the stereo surround, feel like you're going to get wet watching that. So I thought The Finest Hours was solid. It's just not remarkable.
Saw it in 2D. I in particular, and this is again us back to looking at just the visual elements. We follow this woman, Chris Pine's character is engaged, and and the term you used, which I think is more appropriate than the one I thought of, was insecure. He's a seaman. He wants to learn and be a tough guy, but he's kind of henpecked, but by a good woman. She's clearly strong, a little bit maybe more willfully strong, and that comes out because she comes in to find out where he is, and he's out on a boat, and she kind of takes control.
And the guys are like in the what do you want to call it, in the bunkhouse or whatever, like ladies don't really come in here. Wives kind of stay at home.
And she says, well, I'm not taking any of that. So, but there are times when then we follow her out in the snow and everything. It's just beautifully shot. This wonderful blue atmosphere. So I enjoyed the visuals. I kind of knew, because I knew going into it that it was exactly what you were saying. And I thought initially, and this is nothing against Disney, but I thought, I'm in trouble now because it's Disney, and so there's not going to be any real peril.
Not enough people are going to die.
Everything's going to be okay, which it does turn out to be that. 2 terrific performances. I thought Chris Pine was wonderful. I thought Casey Affleck was just absolutely great. I love his brother as a director, Ben Affleck. Boy, if I have a choice, I'd much rather see Casey than Ben any day of the week. So I thought the 2 of them, for me, really held it together performance-wise. Once I kind of realized, okay, I don't really have to feel any true peril, because not only because it was Disney, but because you could kind of see the trajectory of how this was going. It's a true story. So I could sit back and just watch some of the amazing stuff that these people had to do. As you say, it's really a story about them getting out there to save them. Once they got out there, it's just kind of a question of can you get back or not. But I thought Affleck and Pine really held it together. and overall I thought it was two terrific performances that I ultimately ended up, I wasn't crazy about it, but I ended up liking The Finest Hours.
As did we. So that's all we have in the theaters. That's catching up to what's in the theaters currently at Keene Cinemas, which is our local theater, and where we choose to go to see fine quality.
And when you're in Keene, I'd recommend, why not visit Keene Cinemas?
You got no choice.
Exactly.
So now we move along to what you and we might possibly be watching via home or mobile means.
However they might get it.
Vidya.
Right, exactly. But we're back with 007 is back, and he's facing his toughest climactic situation ever. There's some strange familial events going on. We might kind of find out a little bit of backstory about what's happening with James, because he's going to face his greatest nemesis and evil, what do you call them, corporate people, in SPECTRE.
Open your disaster monitor. Your superheroes at the scene of the crime.
Such violence.
Yes. Really looking forward to this. I'm a huge Bond fan, especially Daniel Craig. And after the previous film, which I just thought was my favorite Bond of all of them.
Skyfall.
Was really looking forward to this one. I thought this kind of plodded along. I thought the backstory, where we're kind of learning a little bit about Bond's childhood and early family and who is this new nemesis.
I don't need that personally.
Right. Yeah, and I kind of like the mystery.
I love Bond movies, but what they did to forward the story and make those connections in this, I thought was kind of silly, and I could have done without.
And so overall, I mean, it's fun to find out who this new villain is, and there's one shot where, if you know, I thought there were moments in this that was fun.
When they said who was cast as the villain, I pretty much knew who it was.
Really? Okay.
And it's a good casting. It's great casting.
Yeah, it's a good casting, and it's fun, but this felt like, and I can't imagine how it's fair to hold it up to Skyfall, because I still think Skyfall was not only a terrific movie, but my favorite Bond. So tough to hold it up to that. But I was disappointed in SPECTRE. I thought it was still fun, and I think it is out on video now. So probably after we tape this show, I may run out and buy it so I can watch it again tonight. So I'll buy it and own it because I did like it, but still not my favorite. A little disappointing.
Better than Quantum.
Yes.
Which I hate.
Yes.
So, Skyfall was like a real movie. Skyfall was huge.
Absolutely.
And I was really impressed with that, and I was happy that it was the same creative team carried over to this one, and I'm like, whenever there's a good one, I'm like, could you all just make 5 of them, please? Now, none of this one and done. Just make 5, and then we've got those. This is a step down from Skyfall, I thought. It's more like a solid Bond entry. It hits all the beats. Like if you said, what is the formula for a solid Bond film? This is it. You know, you've got your good guy, you've got your bad guy, you've got your lair at the end that he's taken to, and at the end, maybe it blows up. I don't know. If you're a Bond historian, you know the answer to that. And there's some interesting things. You know, Bond's in trouble. Bond gets his ass kicked good at least one point in the movie. The opening chase during Day of the Dead in Mexico is pretty spectacular.
Yes.
And they do some really fun things. And it's got a lot of humor, bringing humor. So it's a little bit more like a Roger Moore entry, which is dirty words to some people, but that's what I grew up with.
I'm sorry.
No. Hey, every era has their own Bond. I've
and you had to
aside from
suffer
Quantum,
through
I believe no matter how bad a Bond movie, they all have good moments. Quantum, they may have had good moments, you just couldn't see them. So I thought SPECTRE was a lot of fun. You don't want to say who the bad guy is. Everybody knows, but you don't want to say it. He's really good, and I believe he's signed for a few more. This one ends as though Craig is done. And I had heard that, but more recently I'm hearing he may do a couple more.
Right.
And again, growing up in an era where a guy did like 7 or 8 of these, I like the idea of one Bond for a while. I don't like the speculation after every movie is who's going to be the next Bond.
Right.
Well, the next Bond is going to be the one that comes
Black
along
Bond,
when the current
woman
guy is
Bond,
done.
yeah, exactly.
And as far as that crap goes, give me a black secret agent and I will be thrilled. Give me a female secret agent and I will be thrilled. Give me a dog that's a secret agent and I will be thrilled. If they're good films and can spawn their own series, then we'll get like 5. But trying to shoehorn every type of person into this one film series is really doing the world a disservice, where we could have all these great spy movies. Instead, we're only going to have one that may or may not work. Anyway, rant over. So yeah, SPECTRE, it wasn't bad. Up next, what do we got? So, you say you want a haunted house movie.
I did.
You say...
I'm saying it now.
Keep it up. You say you want films with spectral, smoky, beastie monsters and stuff. You say you want a film directed by a man from Mexico who's got a pretty good track record for his visual hilarity and artisticness.
That's easy for you to say.
Buddy, cousin, Uncle Fred Jones, I'm going to give you that movie, or a film that certainly falls into that category and criteria. And that movie is called Crimson Peak.
Come on, dance with me.
Sorry, housekeeping. So, Guillermo del Toro.
That's easy for you to say, yes.
Thank you. Who's brought us many films, including the Hellboy films and a film called Kronos, and he brought us Mimic and Devil's Backbone and a whole lot of other things, brings us this. And
he's always trying interesting stuff, and I'll give him that.
And he's a fan of the genre. He's a cool guy. He
Yep.
actually, I was listening to some commentaries he did for the Night Gallery Season 2 box set, so he's a big fan of 70s,
Really?
80s,
Okay,
and all this
cool.
stuff. But I don't ever love the movies he makes, unfortunately.
Yep.
I always feel like they have notable elements to them, and the visuals are great and the ideas are interesting, but they always kind of bore me a little bit. They never quite come together and click. It's like, while watching this, it's just like, oh my God, this movie is gorgeous. The house is this giant house. And I love films that are set in one location, preferably like a big old house, and you really kind of feel like you're in the house and all that. But it just was a little dull, and I will say there's a fine sink killing, there's a fine shovel killing, and there's a fine face stabbing. 3 things that there's a precious dearth of in modern cinema.
Don't we need more of those? Yes.
Wouldn't it be a better world if there were more face stabbings in films? So I didn't really care for this, but if you're into visuals and ghost stories, this is there. It's certainly well produced. I don't dig on the CGI, wispy, smoky creature things. It just takes me out of the movie, and there's a lot of that in there. But I know there are people who really like this. One of them was not me.
I would just replay yours, and I'll just lip sync to because I have essentially exactly the same feeling. Del Toro's a wonderful filmmaker. I'm always fascinated by his concepts, and this is another one. I love haunted house movies. And this one, as you say, is just gorgeous to look at. Freeze frame any of them, and it's a study in architecture and art design and production design. So this got me through primarily on the basis of that. I did find it slow and boring. I didn't find any of this stuff scary, more because I think that the way they set it up, not the setting, because I love the location, but the way they set up a lot of the situations wasn't terribly clever or interesting to me. I too don't find CG special effects scary anymore. You show me the new Poltergeist, and okay, you did that with After Effects. That's nice. Give me something that's a lot more created by this wonderful location that you're in. So if you're a big fan of Del Toro stuff, if you're a big fan of just beautiful looking imagery, I think that's fine. Otherwise, got a lot of other scary movies we could recommend, I'm sure.
Like Phantasm. Just throwing that out there. Phantasm's a really good movie. Coming to Blu-ray, actually. J.J. Abrams apparently is funding a 4K restoration of Phantasm for Blu-ray. So finally we'll get that on Blu. Speaking of Blu-ray, that's how I watched the next movie. So a small group of women in the Civil War in the South find themselves at the mercy of some bad dudes. It's a classier film than I'm making it sound. And must defend home and themselves. And they find themselves shuttered in the keeping room.
The tower speaks and tells you what to do.
Look for the whole family.
And I think she finds him.
Yay! Her bullet certainly might. So this is an art house movie.
Yep.
The shortest way I would describe this is that it's basically like an art house female Straw Dogs. These guys, these 2 soldiers who have sort of split off. The war is coming to an end, and things aren't going well, and armies are just setting fire to everything as they get out of the area. And these 2 guys like to find ladies, do as they please with them, and then dispose of them. It's really unpleasant. And they come up against these ladies who are in the house by themselves, so it becomes a siege situation. So again, it's very much like, it reminded me of a mix between The Beguiled with Clint Eastwood, even though it isn't really like that movie, but it made me think of it, which is a great movie, and Straw Dogs with the Peckinpah film
Straw Dogs
with Dustin Hoffman. So it does get very brutal at times, but it's also very, very wispy, very art house floaty, if that makes any sense. It's very evocative of times past in a gentler time, but it ain't a gentler time. And it was interesting. I would recommend it to people who are into art house movies. I wouldn't recommend this to mainstream audiences because it is slow and kind of meandering and very slight in some of its dialogue and performances. It's very genteel until the blood starts flowing. As something that I asked to watch and was given to watch, it was an interesting way to pass the time, but I'm not sure I would strongly recommend it to anybody who is looking for an action or revenge movie, let's say.
Right. This is certainly not at all mainstream. both in its topic and the way it approaches it. I thought performances all were
Very
pretty
much.
interesting.
Recognizable people, too.
Right, and once again, I thought it looked very interesting. My difficulty was once I really kind of, because I didn't pay a lot of attention, you and I didn't talk about this beforehand when you handed it to me, and so I just popped it in and started watching, which is usually how I like to do stuff. So once I really started getting a feeling for what this was all about, I was kind of troubled as a viewer about kind of the contemporary nature of the topic and the fact that it was set so long ago. That didn't jive for me. And I think that's the, not to be negative, but that's the conceit and what makes this interesting and unique. But that aspect didn't work for me. And so it took me a long time to kind of get used to it. It was certainly grisly and gruesome, uncomfortable.
That's a better word for it.
To behold. But yeah, so if you're looking for an unusual, certainly non-mainstream film that's got some good performances, I thought it was interesting. It's just not something you want to pick up on your happy day.
You want to follow it up with a comedy.
I guess so.
So up next we have...
Yes, Vin Diesel is back, and he's been around for a long, long time, and he's got some help with a lot of his friends to stop bad, evil female people who are magical and want to do bad things to you. There have been a lot of them beforehand, but they're going after him because he is the last witch hunter.
Switch on the projector, turn the still knob, you'll see 6 exciting still features.
So,
yes.
I'm all on my own on this one because I don't think you saw it. This one, it looked, I love all the whole concept and everything. I like Vin Diesel, but he's sure no actor. So at the beginning, this gets into his grisly backstory and his tortured past. And if you can get past that, I thought the rest of it was loads of fun. This is the film that Michael Caine is in this week. So next week he'll be in a different one because he's in like 5 every month. But he's fun as kind of his mentor and the guy who's like taught him everything that he has to know. It's fun to watch these two characters who have lived through hundreds and thousands of years deal with modern society. And so there's a little bit of that kind of anachronistic stuff going on. But there's lots of good, very CG, techie stuff. But if you go into it, if you like Vin Diesel, if you go into it with a lighthearted nature, which I think I did, I really ended up enjoying The Last Witch Hunter.
And I didn't see it. So,
sorry.
As we are short on time, I will quickly jump into the intro for the next film. So, Tom Hanks stars as an American lawyer in the 50s who is embroiled in behind-the-scenes espionological kind of activities in Bridge of Spies.
Rifle come in Mattel's Frontier set. $5.50 wherever toys are sold.
So this is all about the Cold War between us and the Soviet Union, the Gary Powers incident where Powers was flying over and he gets captured. And so this guy whom Hanks is working with, Hanks has to defend him. And this is a story about all of the social repercussions that Hanks and his family face for trying to defend this commie. And I just found it uninvolving. I know nothing about, I'm not a history. If we're playing Trivial Pursuit, ask me history or geography because I can't get any of them. I know nothing about them. So I found this interesting in providing me some backstory about something through which I lived early on. But other than that, it looked a lot like Schindler's List. It felt like I was trying to recreate that. Performances are okay, but I just didn't find this terribly involving.
I was sort of on the same page. It was more interesting than it was entertaining,
good choice.
or involving. I knew about the U-2, not the band, the U-2 incident where the spy plane was shot down over Russia, and Russia was holding on to our pilot, and we wanted him back. And this is the behind-the-scenes machinations of how the swap happened, where we had somebody they wanted, they had somebody we wanted, and they met on the Bridge of Spies. Tagline, and it was interesting to see the true story, or again, however true the movie winds up being. That's always up to debate.
Right.
And you contrast this against Spectre. This is the reality of the spy world, which wasn't babes and martinis and laser guns and cars with ejector seats. It was tired-looking men with paperwork and phone calls and conversations. And at the beginning, you see this. Again, history makes me really choked up.
I know.
You see this guy get busted and sort of how he was doing his spy thing, and that's kind of cool. But I think it's not a popcorn movie.
No.
It could be viewed as boring by some.
Who is the audience for this?
People old enough to remember it.
I guess.
History students.
Yeah.
Or major fans of Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg. Or big fans of bridges.
Right, there you
Not
go.
Jeff and Bo and Lloyd,
Right.
but actual physical things that span distances, like the career of Jeff and Bo and Lloyd. So that's all we have to discuss this week.
Yep.
I had a great
You had
story
more,
to tell you,
but
but
we'll talk
we
about
yapped
that.
too much, so it'll keep. That's just kind of a subtle reference to the story I have. So until next week, I guess. I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the
Cinemaniacs.